December 23, 1944, 9 p.m., Camp Papago Park, Arizona. While guards patrolled above ground, 25 German U-boat commanders were doing something that should have been impossible. They were crawling through a tunnel that shouldn't exist, removing dirt that had somehow vanished, escaping from a camp the U.S. Army said was escape-proof. But here's what makes this story extraordinary. This wasn't about digging. Every POW camp dealt with tunnels. This was about making approximately 6 tons of excavated dirt disappear without a trace. 6 tons! That's the weight of 4 cars, all removed from beneath the hardest desert soil in America, and the guards never noticed a single grain. The secret wasn't just in where they dug, it was in what they did with the evidence, because these prisoners didn't just move dirt, they weaponized the camp's own infrastructure against it. They turned toilets into disposal systems, they transformed volleyball courts into hiding spots, and they manipulated the one thing the Americans never thought to protect, the camp's water drainage network. This is the story of how German naval engineers solved the greatest problem in escape history, making tons of evidence flush away, one toilet at a time. Camp Papago Park wasn't supposed to be vulnerable. When it opened in January 1944, military planners believed they'd created the perfect prisoner facility. Located 6 miles east of Phoenix in the scorching Sonoran Desert, the camp was designed to hold approximately 3,100 German prisoners of war, guarded by 371 American personnel. The Army's confidence came from one simple fact: the soil. Arizona desert earth isn't like European dirt. Near the surface, it's rock-hard caliche, a cement-like layer formed over thousands of years. An Army colonel inspecting the facility declared that escape by tunneling was impossible. The ground, he said, was hard as concrete. But the colonel made a critical mistake. He assumed all prisoners were ordinary soldiers. What arrived at Papago Park in early 1944 was anything but ordinary. Captain Jürgen Wattenberg, age 43, former commander of U-162, sunk by the Royal Navy off Trinidad on September 3, 1942. Friedrich Guggenberger, captain of U-513, captured off South America in July 1943. Jürgen Quate Fosslam, commander of U-595, taken prisoner off North Africa in November 1942. These weren't just military officers, they were submarine commanders, men trained in engineering, hydraulics, pressure systems, and solving impossible technical problems in confined spaces. Men who understood how water moved, how structures failed, and how mechanical systems could be exploited. The American commander made a second fatal error. Instead of dispersing these troublemakers throughout different compounds, he concentrated them all in Compound A1, the officers' section. Captain Cecil Parshall, the camp's provost marshal, warned this was dangerous. He even pointed out a blind spot between the bathhouse and coal storage that guard towers couldn't see. Nobody listened. By September 1944, Wattenberg had assembled his team. 3 captains, 22 experienced naval personnel, all volunteers, all with engineering backgrounds. Their mission wasn't just escape, it was to solve a problem that had defeated every other POW tunnel operation: dirt disposal.
Let's talk about the mathematics of impossibility. A tunnel 178 feet long, 2.5 feet in diameter, 6 feet deep at the entrance shaft, through Arizona caliche and desert hardpan. Basic engineering calculations tell us this excavation displaced approximately 6 tons of soil, 12,000 pounds of evidence that had to disappear without arousing suspicion. To understand the magnitude, imagine this. A standard 5-gallon bucket holds about 70 pounds of dry desert soil. The Germans needed to move roughly 171 bucket loads. Every bucket had to be extracted, transported, and hidden before the next morning's roll call. and this had to happen over 4 months while guards patrolled just 50 yards away. But the challenge wasn't just volume, it was chemistry. Arizona desert soil has 2 distinct layers. The surface layer is gray-brown, wind-blown dirt mixed with decomposed vegetation. 12 inches down, you hit bright yellow sand, the distinctive color of ancient lake deposits. This yellow sand hadn't seen daylight in 10,000 years. The moment it appeared on the surface, it screamed tunnel. At Stalag Luft 3 in Germany, this exact problem doomed multiple escape attempts. The Germans there called POWs who dispersed dirt penguins because they waddled with bags of sand hidden in their trousers. Guards learned to watch for the telltale yellow stains. Dozens of tunnels were discovered from dirt traces alone. Wattenberg knew this history. He'd studied every major escape attempt. He knew that conventional disposal methods, hiding dirt in attics, scattering it in gardens, stuffing it in walls, wouldn't work at Papago Park. The volume was too great, the yellow color too obvious, the guards too alert after other camps' failures. He needed something revolutionary, a disposal system that could handle tons of material, that left no visible traces, that used existing camp infrastructure so nothing appeared suspicious. What he designed was brilliant in its simplicity, and it started with understanding how the camp's sewage system worked.
The breakthrough came in August 1944 when Wattenberg made an audacious request. He asked the Americans for tools and permission to build a Faustball court, a German sport similar to volleyball, for recreation and morale, he explained. The camp commander, Colonel William Holden, eager to keep difficult prisoners occupied, immediately approved. He even provided 2 shovels, 2 rakes, and, incredibly, a truckload of dirt to level the playing field. The Americans just handed them the perfect cover story. But the real genius wasn't the volleyball court. It was what Wattenberg observed while studying the camp layout. The bathhouse, located at the eastern perimeter of Compound A1, connected directly to the camp's main sewage system. And that sewage system flowed to a treatment area outside the prison fence, dumping into the Cross-Cut Canal, a major irrigation channel built by the Salt River Project in 1888. Wattenberg realized something the Americans had overlooked. The camp's toilet infrastructure could handle enormous volumes. Prisoners numbered over 3,000. The system processed waste from multiple compounds, 24 hours a day. A few extra pounds of sand per toilet, spread across dozens of facilities and multiple flushes, would simply disappear into the flow. The disposal strategy had 3 phases, each more sophisticated than the last. Phase 1. The Toilet Network, September-October 1944. Initial excavation produced the brightest yellow sand from deep layers. This was the most dangerous phase because any surface trace would be obvious. Wattenberg's team fashioned long canvas bags with drawstrings, identical to those used at Stalag Luft 3, but instead of scattering dirt in gardens, they went straight to the toilets. Small quantities, 2 to 3 pounds, were flushed multiple times per hour, not just from one toilet, across 12 different latrines in Compound A1. The timing was critical. Flushes happened during peak usage hours when multiple prisoners were legitimately using facilities. Guards couldn't distinguish between normal sewage flow and augmented volume. The brilliant part? The camp's 1940s plumbing used 4-inch cast iron pipes with gravity drainage. Yellow sand particles, being heavier than water, sank immediately and mixed with solid waste. The sewage stream flowed 400 yards to the treatment settling tanks, where everything, including tunnel sand, collected in sludge that was periodically pumped and hauled away by contractors. The prisoners were essentially laundering dirt through the sewage system.
It disappeared into infrastructure the guards never monitored. Within 6 weeks, they disposed of nearly 2 tons this way, completely undetected. Phase 2, the attic cache, October-November 1944. As the tunnel extended deeper, excavation hit layers of mixed soil, less yellow, more gray-brown. This dirt was less conspicuous, but still risky in large quantities. The bathhouse had a wooden-framed attic with gaps in the ceiling boards. Prisoners fashioned a pulley system using stolen rope and mattress covers. Buckets of dirt came up the entrance shaft, were carried into the attic during shower times when steam obscured visibility, and packed between rafters. They calculated the load-bearing capacity carefully. Too much weight would cause ceiling boards to sag, alerting guards. They never exceeded 800 pounds per section, distributing weight across multiple roof beams. Another estimated 1,500 pounds vanished into this hidden, overhead storage. Guards never inspected attics. Why would they? Nobody could escape through a ceiling into a fenced compound. The Faustball Court, November-December 1944. By late November, the tunnel stretched 150 feet. Excavation accelerated. The final 28 feet needed to be completed in under 21 days to hit the December 23rd escape date, Wattenberg's carefully chosen timing to avoid Sunday roll call. Now the volleyball court became critical. Construction was still ongoing. Guards were accustomed to seeing prisoners carrying buckets, moving earth, leveling ground. What they didn't realize was that the prisoners weren't building up, they were filling in. Every night, after digging shifts ended, approximately 200 pounds of fresh excavation dirt was carried out in the same buckets used for construction. Prisoners worked under portable lights, raking and spreading soil across the playing surface, mixing tunnel dirt with the legitimate topsoil the Americans had provided. The yellow subsoil was mixed with darker surface material in specific ratios, 3:1, to mask the color difference. During the final 2 weeks, they moved an estimated 2,000 pounds this way. Guards watching from towers saw exactly what they expected: Germans building their recreation facility. The court gradually expanded, the surface was packed down, lines were marked. By December 20th, when the tunnel was complete, the Faustball court was finished too, and every grain of evidence was spread beneath it. The entrance concealment. The tunnel's vertical entrance shaft descended 6 feet below the bathhouse floor, hidden behind a large coal bin. The Germans had partially removed a wooden wall section, creating a hidden door. When they finished work each night, they replaced the wall section, then rolled the coal bin, which sat on wooden runners, back against the wall. From any angle, it looked like fixed storage. The 6-foot entrance shaft had another purpose. It hit the water table. Desert water, even in small amounts, kept excavated sand damp and cohesive. Dry sand would have avalanched. Moist sand held its shape, reducing shoring requirements. They only needed minimal wood framing, planks stolen piece by piece from packing crates and bed frames.
The tunnel was completed on December 20th, 1944. It measured precisely 178 feet from the bathhouse to an exit point inside the cross-cut canal's drainage channel, beyond the compound fence, outside the guard perimeter. Wattenberg chose December 23rd for tactical reasons. The prisoners had negotiated a modified roll call schedule, weekday mornings at 9 a.m. and afternoons at 4:15 p.m., with Sunday morning exempt. Escaping Saturday night meant 33 hours before the first mandatory count. By Sunday evening roll call, they calculated being 100 miles away, possibly in Mexico. The final week required one more deception. Prisoners staged increasingly loud celebrations, singing Deutschland über alles, raising German naval flags on weather balloons, and generally making noise. Guards attributed this to news of Germany's Ardennes offensive, the Battle of the Bulge.
The demonstrations distracted from suspicious activity near the bathhouse. Saturday, December 23, 9 p.m., the escape began. 25 men crawled through the tunnel one at a time. Each carried a pack containing chocolate bars, canned meat, coffee, cigarettes, fake identity papers, and road maps. 3 men brought a disassembled canvas raft. The tunnel was lit by stolen electrical wire plugged into the bathhouse circuit, working lights all the way to the exit. The crawl took 15 minutes per man. The tunnel was narrow, 2.5 feet, requiring them to drag packs and push forward on elbows. The ceiling, unsupported except for occasional wooden braces, dripped with groundwater. Sand compressed under their weight. By 2:30 a.m. on December 24th, all 25 had emerged in the cross-cut canal. They scattered into pairs and small groups, heading south toward the Salt River, and beyond that, the Mexican border, 130 miles away. The Americans didn't notice until 7 p.m. Christmas Eve, 22 hours later. When guards finally discovered the tunnel, the reaction was shock. How had this happened? Where did tons of dirt go? Investigators searched the compound for days, finding small amounts in attics and traces in gardens, but the bulk remained a mystery. The sewage disposal method wasn't fully understood until informers revealed details weeks later. The FBI launched an investigation. Director J. Edgar Hoover issued public warnings about 175,000 dangerous Axis prisoners in American camps. Newspapers ran sensational headlines: "Wily Germans elude chase," and "Nazi POWs trigger Arizona's biggest manhunt." But one by one, the escapees were recaptured. The Arizona desert is unforgiving. December temperatures dropped into the 30s at night. Cold rain fell. The Salt River, shown as a blue line on their maps, was mostly dry mud. 3 prisoners with a collapsible raft dragged it 20 miles searching for water, never finding enough to float. Within a week, 8 had surrendered voluntarily, hungry and exhausted. By January 8th, 19 were back in custody. 2 U-boat captains, Guggenberger and Quat Foslem, made it within 10 miles of the Mexican border before being spotted by a patrol. The last holdout was Wattenberg himself. He and 2 subordinates, Walter Kozer and Johann Kremer, hid in a cave north of Phoenix, the opposite direction from everyone else. For a month, they survived using an ingenious resupply method. Kremer would infiltrate prisoner work crews leaving the camp, slip back inside at roll call, gather food and information, then escape again the next day by joining another work detail. This continued until January 22nd, when a surprise inspection caught Kremer inside. Under interrogation, he revealed the cave location. Kozer was captured the next night at their supply drop. Wattenberg, now alone, made a desperate decision. He cleaned up, hiked into downtown Phoenix, and used his last 75 cents for soup and beer at a restaurant. He fell asleep in the lobby of the Adams Hotel. At dawn, he walked outside and asked a street cleaner for directions to the station. The cleaner noticed his German accent and called police. Sergeant Gilbert Brady arrested Wattenberg at 9 a.m. on January 28, 1945. After a brief conversation, he offered Wattenberg a cigarette. Wattenberg took a long drag and said simply, "Okay, the game is up, and I have lost."
The Papago Park escape forced a complete reassessment of POW camp security across America, but not in the way you might expect. The Army considered court-martialing Colonel Holden and his staff for gross negligence, but military leadership realized public trials would expose systematic failures at dozens of camps nationwide. POW labor programs were vital to American agriculture and industry in 1944. Publicizing security flaws might jeopardize the entire system.
Instead, Holden received a letter of reprimand and was allowed to retire early for medical reasons. Security protocols were quietly updated at 500-plus POW camps across the country. The prisoners themselves faced surprisingly light punishment. Wattenberg and the others expected execution. They knew 50 Allied airmen had been murdered after the Stalag Luft III escape. But American policy was different. Each escapee received bread and water rations for as many days as they'd been absent. That was all. Why? International law. The Geneva Convention required humane treatment. America wanted the same for captured U.S. personnel in German camps. Executing Papago escapees would have invited retaliation. What fascinated post-war analysts wasn't the escape itself, it was the engineering methodology. Wattenberg's disposal system became a case study in infrastructure exploitation. Military planners realized that defensive systems designed to keep people in could be weaponized by those with technical expertise. Modern secure facilities, prisons, detention centers, military brigs, now conduct regular sewage flow audits. Sensors detect volume anomalies, drainage systems have filtered catchments, toilet discharge is monitored, all because of what happened in an Arizona desert in 1944. The camp itself was decommissioned in 1946 after prisoners were repatriated to Germany. The land became an Arizona National Guard base. Today, the area is covered by urban streets and housing developments in Tempe and Scottsdale. The Crosscut Canal still flows, now managed by the Salt River Project. In 1985, a commemorative ceremony was held at Papago Park. The guest of honor, flown in from Germany, was 85-year-old Jürgen Wattenberg. Phoenix officials, military historians, and former guards attended. Wattenberg toured the site where his tunnel had been, now completely developed. When asked about the escape, he smiled and said his only regret was miscalculating Arizona's rivers. If they'd had water, he believed at least some would have made it to Mexico. The tunnel entrance is gone. The Faustball court is buried under asphalt. The Crosscut Canal was rerouted decades ago. But the Arizona Military Museum, located on the old campsite, has a permanent exhibit documenting the escape. Photos show the tunnel entrance, maps trace the route, and one artifact stands out: a canvas bag with drawstrings, the kind used to carry dirt down trouser legs. The museum label reads simply, "Disposal method unknown." What Wattenberg and his team proved in 1944 remains relevant today. The greatest security vulnerabilities aren't walls or fences. They're the hidden infrastructure systems we assume are secure because they're mundane. Think about it. Every modern building has water pipes, sewage lines, electrical conduits, ventilation shafts, drainage systems. We design security around preventing breaches, locks, cameras, guards, but we rarely audit what flows through pipes below our feet. We trust that infrastructure serves its intended purpose, nothing more. That's exactly what the Americans assumed at Papago Park. Toilets flush waste, end of story. They never calculated sewage flow rates, never monitored discharge volumes, never considered that smart adversaries would recognize exploitable capacity in a system designed to be overlooked. This principle applies far beyond prisons. Urban infrastructure, corporate facilities, data centers, every system with input-output flows creates potential for exploitation by those who understand how it works. The Papago Park engineers understood pressure, flow dynamics, volume capacity, and waste processing. They saw a sewage system not as a fixed utility, but as a disposal network with excess capacity. Tons of evidence disappeared into pipes that were already moving tons of material daily. The additional load was invisible because it fell within normal operational parameters. This is engineering thinking at its finest, not brute force, not lucky improvisation, Careful calculation, testing hypotheses, iterating solutions, adapting when methods reached capacity limits, distributing risk across multiple disposal channels so failure of one didn't compromise the entire operation. 80 years later, security professionals still study this escape, not for the tunnel itself, tunnels are common, but for the integration of technical knowledge with existing systems to solve an impossible problem. How do you move tons of evidence through a guarded facility without detection? You don't move it yourself. You let the infrastructure do it for you. If you found this story fascinating, there's more where this came from. We explore technical problem-solving in wartime, the engineering challenges, the innovative solutions, the brilliant minds working under impossible constraints. These aren't typical battle stories. These are stories about how problems get solved when failure means capture or death. Hit subscribe to see how other POWs built secret radios from garbage, how engineers constructed bridges under fire, and how cryptologists cracked codes everyone said were unbreakable. We upload new stories every week. And if you want to see the actual documents, photos, and declassified reports from the Papago Park escape, I've linked them in the description below. Everything in this video is verifiable through historical archives because the truth is always more fascinating than fiction. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember, the best solutions to impossible problems often flow through systems everyone takes for granted.